What's up, everyone? This is Dropping Popcorn. I just wanted to start a series on how to make a tower defense game. So by the end of the series, multiple videos, we should be able to make a fully fledged, feature-rich tower defense game that you can customize and make work for yourself. So let's get started. There's a few things that you're going to need just to get the basics in there. As we move through the series, we will be adding more, and each step of the way I'll show you what you need to do. So the sprites that you're going to need an enemy, obviously, something to shoot at. This enemy is going to need the Move To plugin or add-on that you can get from Rex. Here's the URL. Feel free to pause the video and enter that URL in the browser, or I will put that in the description below the video as well. So you're going to need to add that, and to add an add-on, you go into your menu, you go to Account or View, and then you click on Add-on Manager. That will allow you to install this plugin. You're going to also want for this enemy to give it an instance variable of target ID and health. And they're both numbers. Next, you're going to need a tower base. This is the platform that the turret is going to sit on top of. So for this, it doesn't need any instant variables, but you might want to put a pin behavior in there. So just add the pin behavior to the tower base. Next is the turret. You're going to want to add the turret behavior and the pin behavior. The turret will be what's sitting on top of the base and what will rotate around the base to shoot the enemies as they pass by. Next, you're going to want a checkpoint sprite. This is just going to be used to mark the path the enemy will take on the playing field. For this, you're going to want to give it an instance variable of ID. Just leave it at 0. Next, you're going to want an enemy spawn sprite. I mean, you can make these sprites look like anything you want. When you're actually running the game or playing the game and showing the game, you'll want to make sure that you put in an event to make these invisible, or make them invisible by default, but just leave them visible for now. But you'll need that sprite. You don't have to give it any variables or anything like that. This is in there just because I cloned it from the checkpoint, but doesn't need any variables. Then an enemy despawn. When the enemy hits this, collides with this, the enemy will be destroyed. So they don't run on until infinity. And you can get rid of this one. You don't need any variables or anything for this. And then finally, you're going to need a bullet. This is the projectile that's going to fire out of your turret. You're going to want to give this the bullet behavior. And you're going to want to set an instant variable called damage, which is a number instance variable, and set it to any low value. I just made it 25 because the health of the enemy is starting out at 50. You can play around with that and make it anything you want. Okay, so once you have all those added in and ready to go, you're going to want to go over to your play field. And this is where you're going to build the path that your enemy is going to take. And you do that by dragging your checkpoint into the game a little ways from the edge, because you're going to put a spawn in there as well. And this is where the enemy is going to spawn, and then proceed down your path. So you're going to want to build your path now. And to do that, you just drag one checkpoint in, and then you hold down the control button while the checkpoint selected. Hold down control and then drag away, and it'll essentially copy the checkpoint. You don't want to create many sprites for checkpoints. You can just use the same checkpoint. But anyways, build out your path. I'm just going to make mine fairly simple. Then at the end of your path, put a despawn sprite. Okay. Now to get the enemy to follow the path properly, this is where that variable comes in. You're going to want to make sure the ID for each path along, or ID along the path is proper. So start with 0 and then go to 1, obviously, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then yeah, put another one right on top of that despawn and make it 9. Okay, so now your enemy will spawn here. Go to the first one, which is 0, then number 1, number 2, go up there, down there, around there, over here. When it hits this blue circle, it's going to despawn and damage your castle or whatever their objective is. So now we need to make it all work. How do we do that? Let's go over to our events. The first things you're going to want to do is put your tower events in. You're going to need to put some on-created events for your tower so that it pins the turret to the tower. But you need to make sure first that your turret and your base are inside a container together. To do that, you just select either the turret or the base and then click Add Object. I've already done it, but if you click Add Object, you can see I can add other things to it, but because I already have the tower added to it. Here, I'll just show you. Create, and then I can add the tower to it. Gonna undo that change. Do that, then you're gonna come over here. Your tower on created event. You're gonna want to set the tower position to the turret. Tower turret. Image point 0. So let me just show you how. Tower on created. Then choose a new event. Choose tower. And then set position to another object. Tower turret. Image point 0. Then you're going to want to take your tower turret that are now aligned properly with your tower base and pin it to the tower. But position only. You don't want to do position plus angle because then that'll prevent the tower from rotating. And you don't want that. You want to make sure for your tower turret that you have your origin point is over here at the left side of your turret, and that you create another image point by right clicking and clicking add new image point, and then rename it shoot. And then take that image point and put it on the edge over here. This is where the bullet's gonna spawn from. Then you're gonna want to add an enemy for the turret to target. So you would simply do, I'll show you. You pick your turret, click add object to target, and then pick your enemy. You can also make this a family of enemies. If you have like more than one enemy, you can put the family in here instead of just a single enemy. Now we need to make our tower spawn. So right now, since we don't have any buttons or anything in the game, we're just going to use mouse button click. So you're going to need to add your mouse object if you haven't so already, and you can do that just by going in here to create a new object and adding mouse. So when we left click, it's going to create the object. Here, I'll show you. So system, create object, tower on layer, whatever layer you want, usually the middle layer between the HUD and the ground, and then mouse.x and mouse.y. So this is where your mouse location is when you press the left mouse button. Then the turret on shoot, here, I'll show you. So turret, since it has the turret behavior, we want to say when it shoots, when it gets the shoot trigger, it spawns a bullet. So turret spawn, another object, bullet, layer 0, the same layer your enemies are on, and image point shoot. That's the image point we set up on it when we were setting the image points. And then since the bullet doesn't really necessarily know what angle it's going to be moving at, it's just going to appear in the screen and go. We need to make sure its angle is set properly to the angle of the turret, so it goes in the direction the turret is facing. So to do that, you just choose your bullet, set angle, not set angle towards position, because that'll make it go the other way. Then tower turret, which is the name of our turret, dot angle, which is the tower turret's current angle. Okay. For the enemy, we're going to want to make a spawn. This is just a simple way to make a spawn. So system, every so many seconds, and you could type it out like this, which is rounding the number to a whole number instead of having a number with decimal points. So round, random, 2 to 5 seconds. So it'll randomly choose a time between from 2 to 5 seconds and spawn the enemy. And it's spawning the enemy on the spawn circle. So you choose spawn, spawn another object, enemy on layer 0, or whatever layer you're having your enemy spawn, and image point 0. This can be at the bottom. So after it spawns, we need to tell it what to do. So on created, so you click this, add an event, click the enemy, choose the on created event, and then you're going to choose a sub event by right clicking and choose add sub event. System, pick by comparison. So look, pick by comparison right here. The object is checkpoint. We're picking the checkpoint that matches these variables. So checkpoint ID, which is the ID of each of the checkpoints along the path, is equal to the enemy target ID. Okay, so make sure your enemy has a target ID variable, and then do that. So then what is it going to do once it reaches its first checkpoint? We need to add, so go back here. When the enemy reaches its target position, so it's first going to ID 0, checkpoint with ID 0, we need to add 1 to the target ID variable on the enemy. So each time it makes it to its destination, it's going to add 1. And that'll allow it to follow the path in sequential order. And then we need to pick the checkpoint by comparison again and move it to there. So you can just right click here and add a blank sub event and copy and paste that into this into a blank sub event because it's the same exact thing as that. Okay. So this is probably can be done here. When the enemy reaches the end and it collides with this blue despawn circle, it's going to simply destroy so it doesn't keep running on forever. And we want to make sure that bullets that get outside of the layout are destroyed, otherwise they will just stay in the game infinitely and eventually cause the game to crash and lag, or lag severely. So make sure you have this in there. When the bullet collides with the enemy, we want to make sure we're subtracting bullet damage health from the health of the enemy. So let me show you how that's done. So we choose enemy, subtract from health, the enemy's health variable, the bullet.damage variable. So the bullet's damage variable, which I believe is set to 25 right now. Yep. So when the bullet hits the enemy, it's going to subtract 25 from the enemy health. And then it'll destroy itself so it doesn't pass through the enemy and keep going. Then when, of course, the enemy has health that's here, compare instance variable. Health is less than or equal to 0. Don't just put equal to. Don't just put less than, because it needs to be able to do it if it's 0, if it's exactly 0 or less than 0. So you need both less or equal to 0. Destroy the enemy. Okay. Some system events just to clean up the game board. Not really necessarily necessary. So now that we got that, let's give it a run and see how it works. Oh, there's our first enemy. There's our tower that we just clicked and put down. It only takes 2 bullets to kill an enemy right now, but everything's working like it should be. Let's make the health of the enemy bigger so we can see it last a little longer. Okay. Now if these enemies were to make it all the way down to the end, they'd hit the circle and destroy themselves. And then you could add actions to subtract from castle health or base health or whatever you want really from there. And we'll touch on those things in more videos. Hopefully this helped get you started. Feel free to use your own graphics. I'll put the CapX to the Construct 3 CapX link down in the description so you can download it and use it and check it out. Play around with it. And then click subscribe and the notification bell to get notified when the next video in the series is out. Thanks for watching, and I hope you come back for the next one. Take care.